So there's this push. Now, every one of your viewers is going to know about this because it's on like page one of the New York Times again and again and again. This push among, and one of the weirdest aspects of this drive for censorship is that the newspapers, such as they are, the newspapers are down with it. They're in favor of
They're
it.
pushing
which
it.
is which I cannot believe. I mean, given that the New York Times, it's these were the anti-censorship. I mean, up until 4 years ago, this was the bulwark of First Amendment, activism in America was the New York Times. There was nobody who was more of a free speech absolutist than the New York Times. And now they're like, yeah, close those people down, close those other people down. And there's a lot of bad faith in it. But anyhow, to get back to where we were, one of the things that they demand all the time is that podcasts, like what you and I are doing right now, that podcasts somehow be brought under the control of some sort of official who can make sure that nothing wrong gets said, which is just the strange, because a podcast, there's no index. You can't easily do a text search, and there's no authority to turn podcasters into. You can't get them in trouble. You can't cancel them.
Right.
And so this is as though you could. And the funny thing is, you can't really do that with newspapers either. You could try, but
Well, here's the thing. To me, one of the underlying forces at work here, Thomas Frank, is you've written multiple books about not only about populism, anti-populism, but the arc of the Democratic Party away from sort of working class roots and that sort of thing. To me, what we're seeing, whether it's in the media or in some Democratic Party circles or whatever, is an embrace of authoritarianism,
yes,
and a desire to use all the apparatus of state and corporation to
professional power. Yes.
Well,
do you remember
voices they don't like, and that
yes?
Me
do you remember the thesis? And we're putting the cart ahead of the horse here because we should first go through. And show the viewers that this is really happening, because I got two kinds of responses on social media when I put this essay up. There's a lot of people that just don't think this is really happening.
Right.
And that's not the case. There's stories about misinformation and disinformation in the New York Times, in the Washington Post, on CNN, on NPR, all the time. And they always are a tantrum. They always have some implicit or explicit call for someone to crack down, usually social media companies, to somehow crack down on this stuff, meaning Facebook should have an active censorship program. Or Twitter should have an active censorship program, or Amazon, or whatever. And but the sort of grander demand, the grander vision here is that there is a class of people who know the correct answers to everything, and if we just put those people in charge, then all our troubles will be over. And it's. Do you remember the my book Listen Liberal? Sure. It's about it's an interpretation of the Democratic Party as a class party.
Absolutely.
But not the working class.
Right.
It's a party of the professional white collar elite. And this is one of the things that I've always said about that book since the day it was published, is that I started the book by just reading a lot of sociological literature about the professional class. There's a huge sociological literature on these guys, on this segment of society. And I said, you can basically interpret and understand everything that the Democratic Party or that American liberals are going to do by sort of projecting out this this sociological understanding of the professional elite. They think they're right. They think they should be in charge. They think they should have a mute button on everybody else in society because they're right. They have the credentials. They went to graduate school and you didn't. They have an advanced degree. And for them, this is a no-brainer. Idiots are making stuff up on Facebook, and they should be made to be quiet because they don't know what they're talking about. And it's been especially true during COVID, by the way. COVID as culture war is starting to fascinate me now that it's almost over.
God willing, it's almost over.
By the way, I got vaccinated. We'll talk about that later, but I finally did it. So I'm going to be, free to, do whatever I want in a very short amount of time. But during the COVID, the sort of masking wars. You saw this all over the place. I don't know who to blame. Obviously, I think people should wear masks and should take precautions and should wash their hands and stay 6 feet apart. I accept all of that advice. But I can see how people, the officiousness of the sort of professional elite in scolding the world.
It's also classic, Thomas Frank. It's also just classic authoritarianism.
I think it's slightly different than other models of authoritarianism. But you tell me why you think it is that.
Well, no, you tell. Well, I mean,
because it's so friendly, and it's not capitalism that's in charge. So my model of like fascism is the business elite telling everyone what to do, and the thing is that the business elite is gone. They've shot their bolt. That's not a good metaphor. So when I did the research for The People Know, and as recently as like the 1930s, the business elite were in charge in this country, and professionals were kind of for the professional class was a second, they were a sort of subaltern to they did what the business leaders did. So these are they're led by corporate attorneys, corporate economists, that kind of thing. But today it's the other way around. The people with advanced degrees are very much in the saddle in our culture and in our economy. They are in the what's the term that they use? The commanding heights of our civilization is totally the professional elite. And the business class is secondary. And so I always think of authoritarianism as the business class cracking down on us. This is something different. This is like, okay, you go now.
Well, Thomas Frank, I have a slightly different view, which is I think that the professional and managerial class that you write about is an instrument. Nothing is ever black and white, right? So any simple sketch of power relationships is going to be wrong. But I think that they use and are used by the business elites. So, they know they have purchasing power. They use that purchasing power, for example, to get marriage equality for gay people and so on. But at the same time, by appealing to them, by sort of protecting the financial interests a bit and appealing to their social sensibilities, I think the business elites have also used them as a kind of genteel shock troops for this kind of democratic neoliberalism that the party is so often represented. So I don't think it's either one way or another, but I think maybe authoritarian is the wrong word.
Well, it's like a happy authoritarianism. It's authoritarianism that really cares about you.
It's hall monitor authoritarianism.
Yes.
It's eraser.
That's the metaphor of the decade, by the way. That's the metaphor of the decade. The hall monitor.
Right. It's I'm telling authoritarianism.
Yeah. Scolding.
And
the utopia of scolding. Remember my
what, Graeber? Utopia?
No, that was my thing. The utopia of scolding. That's the last chapter of The People Know. That's what the liberal ideal is now. It's a utopia utopia because the people that I write about tend to be very affluent. They live in these beautiful suburbs like Bethesda, like where you are, and they're both richer than everyone else, and they're better than everyone else. They're more righteous. They have the credentials. They know what's right and wrong, and they put these yard signs up saying we're better people than you. All of this keeps bringing me back to that Clash song, "Working for the Clampdown." We put up the poster saying we know more than you. They would say we earn more than you, but it's we know more than you. Working for the clampdown, and this is the censorship thing. This is the sexiest clampdown of them all. Everybody wants to get a piece of this action. Clamping down on Trumpism.
It's a way to silence any view you don't like from left or right, while at the same time feeling profoundly self-righteous about it because you're saving democracy. It's like the village in Vietnam. We have to destroy democracy in order to save it.
Exact. And Richard, I just want to throw out here something, and I don't want to embarrass you by saying this, but you and I are a lot older than a lot of people that are going to be watching this, and they might not remember that liberals once cared about free speech.
Yeah, I know.
So you might want to do a little refresher there. Is it true that liberals once cared about free speech?
It is. And
My
Tom, I can
God,
confirm that.
yes.
I'm even older
Yeah,
than
yeah.
you.
This is another, it's just like, I have to tell people this because they don't know it. It's like, yeah, it was like who we were. It was
Right.
essential. It was at the core of who we were, that we tolerated offensive speech. We tolerated all kinds of stuff for a bunch of different reasons. One is because our understanding of democracy is that it is a conversation. There's all sorts of ideas out there, including ones that are offensive, and you have to tolerate them all if you want to be tolerated yourself. That is democracy. And voters get to choose what they want, and that is the liberal, like Justice Brandeis, understanding of democracy. The other reason is that, and this is one, like we said, we were talking about earlier in the show, if we ever adopt a censorship regime in this country, and there's a lot of people pushing for it right now, who's going to be the first, well, or maybe the second, but the biggest victims of it. Maybe not right off the bat, but soon it would be us.